Welcome to today's podcast. I didn't do one last week, and I do apologize. We've had company in town. We had some friends in town from veggies who came out for a week, and then they hosted their wedding anniversary here in our home. So we had about 25, 30 people. So it's been a little busy, and we've had company and things like that. But I wanted to jump in and show you kind of what I've been doing, what's going on, and what I have coming up in the future. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is projects. Because you can't just stop crocheting and or knitting, right? I mean, you finish one project, you move on to the next. So my big elephant in the room was my granny square cardigan, which if you don't know what I'm referring to, let me find the top of it. It's this monstrosity. I absolutely love it. It turned out to be the right size. Everything was perfect. There was a couple little areas that were a little bit loose because, you know, when you tie in your loose ends and then you block it, oftentimes you end up getting a little bit of holes, you know, and they don't really reveal themselves until you finish blocking. You put it on, all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's unraveling. Oh my God. So there was a lot of that going on, but I really do love the way it came out. And I did it on the diagonal. As you can see, this is the back. So you can see how, actually I'll do it this way so you can see that was from the inside. You can see how it goes in the diagonal, right? Which was really interesting to build it because you're not building square to square to square. You're building diamond, 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 diamond. But I love it, love it, love it, love it. But I have so much left of this yarn. This is the Rainbow Beach by Queensland collection. And this is the 100% Super Merino wash wool. And I've got like sandpiper, and I've got almost a full skein left of all the colors, the yellow, the purple, the green, the orange, pretty much all of them. So I'm like, what else am I going to do with it? Right? So I've been seeing this picture post up on Pinterest, and probably because I've been looking at purse ideas, you know, and then Google or Pinterest goes, ooh, you like that? How about this? Ooh, you like that? How about this? And then you just go down this rabbit hole and you just get all squirrely. But I've been seeing this picture on Pinterest and I just love it. And I'm like, you know what? That is so different and so cool. It's not just a traditional granny square. It's got a little bit of zhuzh to it, a little bit of pizzazz, and it's super, super easy. So my first project that I wanted to show you is that purse. All right. So remember a couple videos back, I showed you that I bought this purse base on Amazon. And then I also got these bamboo purse holders, right? So what I'm doing is I'm going to recreate that purse I had some remaining granny squares from this cardigan. I didn't finish them. You know, I actually had a couple extras, which is great. Better to have a little extra than not enough. So I'm making this strip that goes like so. This is going to go across the bottom and then down the sides. It's kind of a mess right now. But what it's going to look like is, let me see if I can pull this out here. Get rid of that piece of yarn. So it's going to go down the side of the purse here, right? This is going to be the bottom. And then it's going to go up the side. So I'm going to make a piece that goes up the side. So this from the sides, down the bottom and up the other side, that's one strip. And then coming down this side and then this side is another two sides. And so you stitch it all together and then you just sew it up onto the purse. And it's actually going along really fast. I like what I did here. I just started this is totally top of mind, right? I had these granny squares done already, and I just sewed them together, and then I did a little border, and then here I just did like a regular double crochet, straight up double crochet. Then I did these here where I did the loop comes down. Then I did some little bobble stitches in there, another little double crochet, and then I'm going to do some like going down into the stitch, maybe some more bobbles, stuff like that. I did some fan work over here on this side, but it got to be a little bit too long. So I'm probably going to take this part out and redo it. But seriously, it's so easy. So this is going to come up one side and then this side's going to come up on the other side. and these 2 granny squares are going to be on the bottom. And then what I think I'm going to do is, I like the idea of things not being like totally symmetrical, you know? And so I have these 4 granny squares left. I believe there's 4. Yes, well, there's 4 in there. So I'm going to put like 2 going down one side here, but on this side, like this. And then I'm going to have crochet going along here. And then on this side over here, I'll put them on the opposite side, like so. And then I'll have the crochet going down this way. It's just so it gives a little bit of a different look to it. And then I will just sew in these handles. And it's going to be such a cute purse. I'm really excited. So when this is finished, or when it's a little bit farther along, I'll go ahead and post more pictures of this in I'm going to move my works in progress over to my podcast. So from now on, if you want to see my works in progress, they'll be posted into my podcast. So this is what I'm working on here. I just started it yesterday afternoon, so it's very new in the whole process, if you will. What else have I been doing? So I recently reviewed this book on the Mix and Match Modern Crochet Blankets, which I just love it. Love it, love it, love it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to talk about this in a second. We're going to be going on a big vacation, and I'm going to be taking this book with me. But I had started this project here. I was just doing that regular blanket stitch down here, and I even did a tutorial on it, which was great. But then I started looking at these patterns, and doggone it if I just didn't get like totally inspired. So what I'm doing is, every time the color changes, see, like it's the blues and greens here, I'm changing and it's something else. Here you see I did a bunch of bobbles. And up in here, I am doing that moss stitch where you do a chain 1 single crochet. And I'll do that through the end of this ball here. And then when it switches into these colors again, and I have 3 skeins of this. This is the mandala tweed stripes, and this one is called horseshoe. But as it changes colors, I'm going to change the stitch. So it's going to have this really, and I already love it. I already love the basket weave down there at the bottom, right? And then the bobbles up there. And I'm just going to kind of keep changing it up and just make it very freeform. So instead of just all the blanket stitch. So I'm really excited about that. So I've got that going on as well. So that's 2 crochet projects right now, right? Comment below, how many crochet or how many projects do you have going simultaneously? I don't think, it's rare that I only have 1 project. I think with my granny square cardigan, I just made that the one because I was so afraid if I started off on another project that I would get sidetracked away from this, and I just had to finish it. So I really dedicated myself to staying with this one. But now that I'm off on that one and I'm working on this, I do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, my husband, I swear, I think he probably thinks I have ADD, or CADD, crochet attention deficit disorder. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go work over here, and oh, I'm going to work over here. But those are 2 of the projects that I'm working on right now. Then, let me show you this other one. So, I think I mentioned, if I didn't, I'm mentioning it now, and you'll hear me mention it a lot from here on out, that my husband, who is recently retired, and we do love to travel, we are going on a pretty epic, we did an epic road trip back in May. We're doing a pretty epic trip starting in October. We are sailing, we love to cruise, and we're going to be cruising from San Pedro Harbor, which is in Long Beach, which is Los Angeles County. And we're going to cruise for 27 days. Okay, we're going to be 19 days at sea, but the whole total of the cruise is 27 days. We're going to cruise from Los Angeles all the way to Sydney, Australia. What? Boom, it's going to be like really exciting. Now, I have been to Australia. My husband, who is Brit, has not been to Australia. I said, you're going to love it. It's like Britain with all the British food and the accents, because they're kind of British, right? But with San Diego weather, like it couldn't be any better. But once we go to Sydney, we've got some friends there that we're going to see, but we're going to spend 4 weeks in Sydney. So 4 weeks on the cruise ship and then 4 weeks in Australia. And that's pretty epic. So I think I spent more time thinking about which crochet projects, which knitting projects I'm going to bring with me. Then I have thinking about clothes and how to pack for this trip. So that leads me into this next conversation. What projects am I going to bring? I'm not going to bring the purse that I just showed you, and I'm not going to bring the blanket that I'm making here. I'm actually hoping to finish this blanket and this purse before we go on the trip. We leave October 7th. This blanket is going to a friend of mine who lives back in Colorado, and I just found out that she just had some surgery and she's kind of laid up, so I thought, oh, blanket's better than anything else and better sooner than later. I was going to give it to her for Christmas. So I'm not doing that. This one I'm also hoping to have finished, but I'm thinking I would want to take it on the trip with me. So a couple shows back, I started talking about this yarn by Noro. So the yarn is called Asajinu. And it just so happens that, because I thought, okay, this yarn is really cool. I got it in this really kind of interesting green color. And then I got it in this kind of an oyster, maybe, like a cement gray color. But I thought, all right, it's so cool, but it's really unique in that you can't block it like you normally would block yarn because it's made out of linen and paper. So you really can't get it wet. So you probably should know your weather before you decide to wear any garments out in this. But it's crafted from flax and Japanese washi asajinu, right? It's an artisanal yarn. So it's a little bit more specific, right? I don't know that I would be buying it in large quantities, but I did find it on Little Knits and it was on sale. I thought, I want to give it a try. And it just so happened I happen to have this issue of Noro Yarns. I love their magazines. And I've been checking out this poncho on Pinterest thinking I could use up the extras of this yarn here for that. But honestly, I just didn't have the attention span to do something like this again after I just did that big granny square thing. So I'm not doing this. I'm doing this purse. If I have extra, maybe I'll do something like this, but I don't think I'll have quite enough. But inside of this issue, it talks about this yarn, this linen and paper yarn. And so this is the color. These are the 3 colors that I got. It only comes in the 4, but I got these 3 colors here. And so I thought I'm going to do a little experiment. I'm going to knit and I'm going to crochet, see which one I like the best. So I did start knitting, and this is just the most simple back and forth, garter stitch, knit, back and forth, back and forth. It's going to be like kind of a tunic. So it's going to be a sleeveless tunic, and the pattern did call for using this yarn. And then here at the bottom, it used a little bit of that mauve. So I'm doing it. See, now this is the back side, and I'm probably maybe halfway finished with the back side, and then I got to do the front side. But I'm using it, and I find that, and I've almost finished. This is 1 skein. I've got this little bit left here. I find that the more that I use this, I don't hate it. It is kind of coarse. You can kind of see, right? But the more that you use it and you kind of break those fibers down, it gets a little bit softer. So I'm not hating it. Would I buy it again? No, because it's not my mainstream, but it is interesting. And I think it's going to have this really cool artsy look, kind of a linen look, which I love, garment when it's all said and done. And basically you just decrease the stitches till I get up to, I think it's 84. And then I'm going to start doing the sleeve cutouts, right? And then the neckline, and then I'm going to do the back side. So this is knit. I mean, obviously, unless you crochet and you've never seen knit, this is what knit looks like. So it's just very, very basic. But then what I decided to do was to take the same yarn and try to crochet it and see how that works. So I am doing the green, which I really love this green, and I'm doing it in a crocheted stitch. This is just very, very simple. Single crochet, although it kind of does roll onto itself. It's a little bit stiff. And so you have to kind of like work with it, stretch it, bend it, whatever. But this is going to be this tunic here. This guy here is what I'm making. But instead of knitting it, I'm just crocheting it. And I'm just, either that or I might get bored and just go, I'm just going to do the tank top. So I'm really not following this pattern. But I am just doing it in crochet. I figured out the measurements. I'm just doing it across and doing it. as much as I really enjoy crochet more than knitting, and I think I always will, I like knitting with this stuff better than I like crocheting with it. I think because it's a little bit stiffer and thicker with the crochet, that it feels thicker, and it's a little bit more of a coming out to be a stiffer fabric. But it's interesting nonetheless. So I don't know if this is mid-September. I don't know if I'm going to have time to finish all these projects before I leave. This one I would like to finish because I'd like to take it on the cruise with me and just make it like a loose tunic kind of a thing. We shall see. So that's another project that I'm working on. Can we count? Let's see. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 projects so far. 4. And actually that's all I'm working on right now. So that's good. And I still need to make time to make my Racktivist little projects, Ghibli Bobs. Okay, so here's a project that I am thinking about taking with me on the cruise. I have been drooling over this yarn for months, not this piece, for months. And it is hand spun dyed by this really great weaver and an independent dyer in, I think she's in Austin, Texas, somewhere in Texas. Got a little hair right there. I believe it's Austin, Texas. And the company is called Purple Lamb Fiber Crafts. And I love what she's doing. So this yarn here, it is called Van Gogh's Starry Night. And I'm just a huge, huge fan of Van Gogh. I always have been. I was fortunate enough to travel with my husband to Arles, France, where he spent a lot of time. And I actually went to a restaurant that was the Little Yellow House back in the day that he shared with Paul Gauguin, which is now a restaurant. And then I was also able to go to the asylum. Oh, goodness gracious, sorry. We were able to go to the asylum where he ended up staying and ultimately taking his life. But this is where he painted Starry Night and a lot of his sunflowers and a lot of his people out in the fields that were farmers and things like that. He just really loved this part of the country, loved these people. And so to go back and kind of walk in his footsteps was really amazing. And where the asylum is, where he stayed, there's a lot of olive groves sort of in the back, and then there's these beautiful lavender farms. Well, the olive groves are in the front, and the lavender farms are in the back. So you can walk around, and they have these different paintings on these easels that were his, and you can see, okay, in this spot here, he painted this, or in this spot, this inspired him to paint this, or this is where he stood and he painted this, which I love. I don't know what it is about Van Gogh specifically, but I'm a really, really huge fan of his. So it was really exciting to go to where he was and walk in his footsteps and things like that. This is in Arles, France. So when I saw this yarn, I was like, oh my goodness. And it was a little bit pricey, so I held off for quite a while. And then I was like, oh God, you know what? I just want to do it. And I saw this picture here that she posted. This is the shawl that was created. Now the shawl is not actually created for the yarn. The yarn was created for this shawl. The shawl is called Float. And in the original picture on Ravelry, it's this gray and pink one, which does not, personally, I don't think it does this pattern justice. When I saw this pattern here done in these blues and some of the greens, and even with the little speckles in it, right? And then this yellow coming through, I'm like, if this is not Starry Night, I don't know what is. So the skeins were expensive. You know, they were $28 a piece, which isn't really much when you think about a hand-dyed, yarn. I totally get it, but it was like, ooh, it's a little scary. I finally did it. I busted it down. I think they had like a new customer discount, whatever, and I bought these skeins. What's really interesting about this is it's called assigned pooling. So you know how I've talked about the variegated yarns and the self-striping yarns and things like that. Somebody else asked me in one of the comments, what do you know about assigned pooling yarn? And I knew I wanted this yarn. Okay, so what assigned pooling is is that it's very specific with the randomness, if that makes sense. So instead of having like this yellow just running all the way through it, it's in very specific areas. And so the idea is that you're just going along and you're just knitting, and this is a knitting project. And unfortunately, for it to look the way I want it to look, it's going to have to be knitting, which is going to take a long time. But when you run into the yellows here, you make this really interesting star. And so when the project is done, you've got this beautiful blues and greens shawl with these pops of yellow that are like yellow stars. And with the little sparkles in it, you guys can totally see that. I'm like, oh my God, it's going to be amazing. So I am going to wind these guys, and I'm going to bring this with me on the ship. And I don't know if I'm going to get it finished because knitting takes a lot longer than crochet, but it's going to be a beautiful project. So I'm very, very excited. So this is one of the projects I'm going to be bringing with me is the assigned pooling, and I'm going to make this scarf right here. This is called Van Gogh Starry Night. And the owner of the store was so sweet. And I told her, I said, you know, I've got this YouTube channel and I'd love to feature your yarn. So when I get started on this, I will definitely feature, it'll be on the ship, but I'll definitely do a video on this. I said, I want to, you know, feature your yarn. But they also send it with your permission. If you don't want it, you don't have to, but they have these little cute little wool balls, and she soaked them in lavender. So when you open up this box, it has this amazing, like, beautiful scent of lavender. It was wrapped in purple tissue paper. You know, they just really went the extra mile. It's not like you're going to, you know, Lion Brand or Hobby or Style Craft or any of those where they just throw it into a box. I mean, this was definitely packed with some love, which I'm very excited about. So it's definitely going to be a lot. And it's just, like I said, stocking knit, you know, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So you knit and purl, knit and purl, knit and purl until you get to the yellow, and then you have pop these stars, pop these stars. So you guys will see that in its production. So this is another guy. And then the other projects. So I think I'm going to bring two projects with me. I don't want to be overwhelmed. So I want to bring one knit and one crochet project, because we're going to have, so on the first leg, we have 5 days at sea, and then we end up in Hawaii, and we're in Hawaii for one day. We're supposed to go to Honolulu and Maui, and obviously Maui is not doing so good right now, so we don't get to go there, but we're going to Honolulu. So we're only going to Hawaii for one day, and then we spend another 4 or 5 days at sea, and then we end up in Tahiti. And because they're making up a day that we missed in Maui, we thought they'd give us like another day in Hawaii, but they're giving us an extra day in Tahiti. So we're actually spending, I think, like 4 days in Tahiti. We're spending one night in Moorea, which is where they filmed the South Pacific, which I'm very excited about. And the snorkeling is going to be amazing, but it's got the big Polynesian, the big mountains, and the water, the blue water that goes out forever for miles. You can, like, you know, snorkel to your kneecaps and never, ever, you know, have to go deep and just see the beautiful fish. So I was so excited to go to Moorea. And then we're spending 2 nights in Tahiti, and we're going to tour the island. But the big excitement for me is going to be Moorea. So we spend those 2 days there. Then we go to American Samoa for a day. Then we spend 3 days in New Zealand. So you'll be seeing that. And then from there, we go like another 2 or 3 days at sea, and then we end up in Sydney, Australia. So you guys get to come with me. I pay the tab, and you get to come with me. So you're welcome. You know, that's just what we do. So you'll be seeing that project, this assigned pooling, and this one. And this is going to be my crochet project. And this is called the Middle Finger Blanket Pattern. I got it from Furls. So I did a little tutorial on this a couple weeks ago, or actually like an unboxing. So I got I got my yarn back here and all of my yarn in here. And I even have my Furls hook, which came free. Well, it was included. My husband goes, nothing's free. It's always just included. So it was included. And it's in here somewhere. Here it is. So I got my little crochet hook here. And so this is going with me as well. Now, I think that's going to keep me busy because, you know, there's other things to do on a cruise ship besides knit and crochet. You know, there's the pool. There's hanging out in the pool, maybe a little bit of spa time, but I'm not really a big spa person, honestly. But we like to do the trivia and we like to do the movies at night and things like that. So this is going to be my little project bag. I hope to have this thing finished pretty quickly while we're there. And then the knit project too. So those are my projects. Whew, that took up a lot of video. All right. And then the other stuff that I have going on. Well, I thought this was interesting, perhaps. So we live in California, and my husband and I, we wouldn't consider ourselves serious gardeners, but we do a fair good job. And, each year we try to plant some tomatoes and maybe some vegetables. And, some years have been a lot larger than others, depending on if we're traveling. This summer, we don't happen to be traveling. We did our road trip. We got back at the beginning of June, so we could have done it, but, it's just a lot of work. And then harvesting. Well, I went out today and, hello. So as you can see, we have a huge harvest. Take a look at these figs. I have never in my life seen these goose egg pterodactyl Jurassic Park size figs ever. I think it's because we had so much water this year. We had so much rain that the tree, these figs were literally like just busting and bursting at the sides. And I don't know what to do with them. I love figs, but that's a lot of figs. So I'm making homemade fig Newtons. So as you can see here, I took the figs, I peeled them, I took off all of the white, the pulp, and or the white pith rather, and then took it down to the pulp and boiled it down, added a little bit of lemon juice, give it a little bit of flavor. So I boiled this down here. I'm making homemade fig Newton cookies. And then these guys over here, the yellow tomatoes, that's one plant, just went bonkers, absolutely bonkers. And it was all I could carry today. So as you can see, I took these here and I am making them into a roasted vegetable, basically roasted tomato sauce. And I'm just going to puree it down and I'm going to put it in the freezer, and then it's going to be there for this, for the freezer. So that's nice. And then we're also tonight doing for dinner a yellow tomato tart with some herbed cheese and then the yellow tomatoes on top. So that's pretty much going to get rid of all the tomatoes that we have until tomorrow, until they just go bananas all over again. So usually I fight the birds and the insects at this stage of the game. I'm like, no. At this point, I'm like, have at it. Enjoy. So if you guys live in San Diego and you're close enough, let me know and I'll give you some tomatoes from our garden. That's pretty exciting. So that's it for now, really. This was my projects and then my other projects. So I'll continue to come back and bring you my works in progress here in my podcast. And then again, when I have tutorials to do or reviews, then those will be separate. But I think that's a pretty good, concise way of doing things. And I don't want to have any overlay, like repeating. But it seems to me I like the podcast because it's a little bit more just sort of like, top of mind sort of a thing. So I hope you enjoy that. And tell your friends about us, please. We are so close to hitting 1,000 friends. And I've got some really exciting news when we do hit 1,000. So stay tuned. We're going to be doing, I think, some giveaways and a big party and stuff like that. So stay tuned to this channel. Make sure you hit that notification button. Make sure you like and subscribe, but hit that notification button so that you get notified whenever I post any new videos, any new tutorials, any new anything. And as always, thanks so much for watching. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you all. So I love this. I love coming in here and talking to my camera and, thinking of you on the other side of it. Again, thanks so much for watching. I'll be back soon.